The rain was just coming down in sheets. I had the umbrella in my left hand, and I was holding the umbrella very high on the shaft, and my wedding ring was touching the metal. Suddenly, there was like a chill in the air, and it felt kind of like static electricity. As soon as I thought, let go, just let go of the umbrella, a large bolt of lightning hit the top of the umbrella. I looked to the right a little bit, and I saw a heap on the ground. And I'm looking at that, and I'm like, oh my God, that's me. That's me. I was lying in a grease puddle in the parking lot. I was like willing myself to get up. Get up, get up. And then it just hit me. I'm not getting up. I'm dead. As soon as I realized I was dead, a light appeared. The light was pulsing. It was alive. The light was conscious, and it wanted me to follow it. I'm Elizabeth Krohn. I'm from Houston, Texas. I think I had a pretty normal childhood. I have 2 younger sisters. My dad had a dental practice. My grandparents all lived nearby, and I was very close with my grandparents. It was just kind of the childhood you want your children to have. My parents were raising us Jewish. We were Reform Jews, which is like Judaism light. I finished high school, got my undergraduate degree, I got married, and went to law school. The way my brain worked was law is very black and white. It's right or wrong. There's no question, there's no gray area. And that really appealed to me. When I started law school, we already had our first child. That was not easy, having a baby and trying to go to law school. And then I got pregnant again, and I had to be on bed rest for an extended period of time, which put an end to law school. My husband was out of town on a business trip. It was the first anniversary of the death of my grandfather. My entire family was going to be at services that night because they were going to be reading my grandfather's name. My boys were 2 and 4 at the time. So I got the boys all dressed up in their little suits and little bow ties. It had been a bright, sunny day, and suddenly there was like this black rain cloud. I don't know where it came from. It felt like it was right over my car. As we pulled into the parking lot, the rain was just coming down in sheets. I didn't want to sit in the car and wait for it to pass because I was afraid they were going to read my grandfather's name, so I didn't want to miss that. I realized, well, we're going to get wet. I told my 4-year-old, run to the awning over the door and to wait for us there. I climbed over the seat of the car to get my 2-year-old out of his car seat. I got him and grabbed an umbrella. And I realized that I couldn't carry my 2-year-old and still be able to control the umbrella. So I set him down and I held his hand. I had the umbrella in my left hand and I was holding the umbrella very high on the shaft, and my wedding ring was touching the metal. We started walking. Suddenly, there was like a chill in the air, and it felt kind of like static electricity. My hand was right in front of me, and I looked at it and I thought, well, this is stupid. I shouldn't be holding the umbrella like this. As soon as I thought, just let go of the umbrella, a large bolt of lightning hit the top of the umbrella. My 2-year-old Andy started screaming, and I looked at him and he had his hands up against his ears, and I saw Jeremy running back out toward us. I was angry. I told him to stay there. What is he doing? I saw him run over and grab his brother and start pulling him toward the building. The whole thing was so disorienting. Like, what is going on? I followed the boys to the building. They got to the door and went inside. So now all three of us were in the lobby there. And there was a man walking, I guess, from the restroom back into services. And it was someone that knows us. So he came over to see why the boys were screaming. And he's talking to them. And I'm like, why isn't he talking to me? I'm right here. He wouldn't even look at me. I mean, nothing felt right. Everything was off. He went into where the service was going on, and I saw him say, "We need a doctor." The rabbi stopped the service. This is a Jewish synagogue, 1 block from the Texas Medical Center. So like, I don't know, 40 men got up and came toward the back of the room. Meanwhile, I'm wondering where my umbrella is, because it was a new umbrella. I saw the umbrella and it was a skeleton and it was smoking. I looked to the right a little bit and I saw a heap on the ground, and I'm looking at that and I'm like, oh my God, that's me. That's me. I was wearing a new pair of shoes and I saw that my feet were sticking out from the bottom of the shoes. I was upset about the shoes. So I looked down at my feet in the lobby there where I was, and the shoes were on my feet and they were perfect. Perfect. The only issue was my feet were not on the ground. I was hovering a few inches above the ground. I was having a very difficult time trying to understand what was happening, because I had always been very skeptical of anything like this. And as soon as I thought that, I was there above my body. I was lying in a grease puddle in the parking lot. I was like willing myself to get up. Get up, get up. And then it just hit me. I'm not getting up. I'm dead. As soon as I realized I was dead, a light appeared. The light was pulsing. It was alive. The light was conscious, and it wanted me to follow it. It led me to a place that I call the garden. It wasn't a garden like you would think of here on earth. The words don't exist here to really adequately describe the place I was in. Everything was perfect. This place was heaven. There was a bench. It was very ornate. It was just gorgeous. And a voice told me to sit down. The voice was my grandfather, who had died a year earlier. You know, when your dead grandfather says, sit down, you sit. You don't argue with that. And so I sat down, and as soon as I sat on this bench, it like morphed. I felt this overpowering, overwhelming sense of unconditional love. I felt I was home. I thought I knew what unconditional love was. I mean, I had children. That's unconditional love. But this was a whole different level. This was totally different. More intense and much deeper. I don't believe that that voice was my grandfather. I believe that it was my grandfather's voice to put me at ease so I wouldn't be absolutely terrified. But I do believe that it was God that was sitting on that bench with me. Off in the distance, I could see other people. Everyone looked young, healthy, and perfect. They were all paired up with some type of guide. Nobody was having to navigate this on their own. So everyone there was in heaven. But I also knew that everyone was seeing something different. They were seeing what heaven was to them. The voice that I had heard, my grandfather's voice, told me that he was not going to say anything else out loud. He would just put the information into my head. I proceeded to ask questions. And as fast as I could think a question, the answer was there. It was like an instantaneous download of information. There was an extensive conversation about quantum physics, and I totally understood it. But here, I don't know anything about quantum physics. I cannot wrap my head around it here. Being here is like being in a bowl of pea soup. It's so murky and heavy and difficult. But I know that while I was there, I understood the relationship of space to time and how it worked. A lot of the conversation revolved around questions I was asking about my family and my future. I was given a choice. You can go back, you can stay here. There was a gorgeous path in the garden, and it led to a mountain range that was off to the right. Apparently, if I decided to stay, I would take this path over the mountains. The entire time I was there, everything was so perfect. There was nothing that I could have asked for. Everything I needed was right there. Why would I go back? He said, there was more that you had planned to do in this life. You'll have a third child. It'll be a girl. He said she's already picked you and your husband to be her parents. You can either go back now and finish, you're 28 years into it, or you can start over. That made it pretty easy. I need to go back and just finish the job. I was told that it would be physically painful because I was burned from the lightning. I thought, oh, yeah. So I looked at my hand, and it didn't have a ring on it, and there was no burn, and I turned it over, and it looked like I was 18 years old. Everything was perfect. And he said, okay, one other thing. When you left your body, your soul expanded. And I'm going to have to squeeze you back into that body. It will feel bone-crushingly tight. And I said, okay. The next thing I knew, it felt like every bone in my body was breaking. And then I opened my eyes, and I was lying in the rain. People were just starting to come out to help me. And I was back. I knew what had happened. I was very clear in my mind, and I even remember thinking, you can't say anything about this. Don't say anything. They're going to laugh at you. They're going to say you're crazy. I knew I couldn't talk about it. I was helped into the building. One of the doctors that was there was an electrocution specialist. Anyone that went into Methodist Hospital in Houston, Texas, in the medical center, that was suffering from any type of electrocution, this is who they called. And he was there. He said, we can take you into the hospital and check you out, but he had a bag there. He listened to my heart. He said, they're just going to call me, and I'm here. So he said, you're going to need to be treated for the burns, which I was. I spent the next 3 months in bed because my feet were very burned and it was very painful to walk. I have scars on my feet from the lightning leaving that way. At the time, I had never heard the term near-death experience. I knew nothing about it. I thought I was having some type of spiritual crisis. I couldn't make heads or tails of anything, and I wanted to talk to a clergy person, anybody, somebody help me. I went and talked to many rabbis. I'm Jewish. I thought they'll listen. They didn't want to hear it. They really didn't want to hear it. They're not trained to handle something like that. And basically, it was a pat on the head and they're there. You'll be fine. Go on now. They were nice, but dismissive. I told my husband and I told my mom. My mom was fascinated. She had so many questions and she totally believed it. My husband pretty much laughed at me, said, "You're losing it. That did not happen. You were asleep. You had a dream." My husband and I remained married for another 9 years, and we did have a third child, a girl. So all of that was very accurate. My NDE totally shifted how I think about life and death and religion, how I think about everything. Because when you know that death is not the end, it changes everything. When I look at the picture now, I'm a different person. I am much more spiritual now. The old me was very by the book, black and white, everything very rigid, very structured. I did not believe in life after death. I thought when you die, that's it. It's over, lights out, you're done. And that is not the case. Consciousness survives. In September of 2022, my mom passed away. It was a very difficult time for my whole family. In October, we had local elections in Houston. I went to a community college where they were having the voting. There were people in the parking lot who were wearing volunteer T-shirts. One of them came over to me and said, "Are you here to vote or are you here for a class?" And I said, "To vote." And she said, "Okay." And she showed me which door to go in. I start walking, and she started walking with me. And I was kind of annoyed because, my mom just died. I was grieving. I didn't want to make small talk. Finally, I got to the door and went inside. And I was in there for about an hour and a half. And I came back out, and she's still there, this woman. She said, "Well, you did it." I said, "Did what?" She said, "You did your civic duty." And I said, "Yeah. Okay, have a good day." And she said, "Where's the other woman?" I said, "What other woman?" She said, "The older woman that you came with." I said, "I didn't come with anyone. I was by myself." She said, "No, the older woman. She's wearing the blue and green blouse with the big decorative buttons." And I said, "I have to go." And got in my car as fast as I could. My mom is buried in a blue and green blouse with 3 big decorative buttons. The old me would have laughed myself out the door here. I wouldn't have believed this. So I do get communication from the other side. I do in things like that. This is a very difficult experience, living as a human on Earth. We all deserve an award for being here, for agreeing to do this. It's not easy. The only thing that helps me get through it is the knowledge that I get to go home. I don't have any fear of death, but I don't want it to happen anytime soon. I want to watch my grandchildren grow up. I was talking to my 5-year-old granddaughter. She said, "How old are you, Grandma?" And I told her, and she said, "Wow, that is really old." And I said, yeah. She said, "How old do you want to live to be?" And I said, "Well, I want to live to be old enough to see you grow up and get married and have children." And she said, "That would make you like 100. And I said, "Well, however old I get to be is great, because it's more time I get to spend with you." It's about the people in your life. It's about the life you're leading. If you're doing what you want to be doing, if you're happy, that's what it's all about. And for me, that's enough.